Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer action. The cat is out of the bag, or the dogs have been let loose, if you will, and it has been announced, so I can finally talk about it. I have been invited to the Ever-Chosen Invitational, going to be happening a week from the day that you guys see this. So yeah, definitely very excited, very honored to be a part of it once again. And so what that means for the channel is you guys are going to be seeing a lot of community casts over the next week. If you have some battles that you want to get featured, I know a lot of you have reached out to me recently about that. Now's the time, because a lot of my games I am going to be keeping hidden for the time being. This is a game between myself and Dutch Skink, who is helping me with some practice today. And I am going to show this one, but a lot of my games I'm not going to be showing until probably after the Ever-Chosen. Rest assured, you will see the best of those probably in a couple of big multicasts after the Ever-Chosen. But for the time being, I do want to try and keep some secrets secret. So we're going to, yeah, mostly do community casts. This one, though, like I said, myself against Dutch Skink. Dutch Skink, you know, wanted to play some battles with me, help me practice a bit. So he did mention that he's not super familiar with Norsca against High Elves here, so let's go ahead and talk about things a little bit. Got 4 Illyrian Reavers on my side. We're going to be led by Teclis, and just quickly to mention here, the reason we bring Teclis is mostly for Kindle Flame. He's also got Net of Amantok, Enfeebling Foe, and Regrowth, so anytime he casts any of those spells, the following units will get a damage boost. The Flamespire Phoenix, but we've got 2 Handmaidens, which of course have flaming on their ranged attacks, and speaking of flaming ranged attacks, we've got the Everqueen's Court Guards also. We've also got 2 Grey Eagles up in the air just to give us a bit more power in the mobility game, so definitely a very mobile, kind of hit-and-run style elf army. You can see I'm just kind of hanging back with my infantry and my archers for the time being, and yeah, we did manage to get a hold of that Norscan Warhound in a really nice vanguard position there. I'm going to move up and start poking away with the Handmaidens at these Famir Warriors here. A couple of Famir Warriors. We've got Wulfric leading the way, Famir, Balefiend, Lord of Fire, Marauders up front, second line of champions, and the aforementioned Hounds. So yeah, you can see the Hounds getting cut up pretty good by my Reavers here. We're also going to drop down an Eagle for a bit more stopping power, but a very nice play by Dutch Skink here. He does manage to get these 2 units of Hounds in a full surround on my Handmaiden here. And you can see Wulfric is also closing the distance along with some Famir here, so this is potentially a pretty bad situation for me. We're going to get these Reavers in here for a rear charge to try and bail her out. You can see I'm also bringing the other Handmaiden over to this side. We've got the Phoenix as well, and the Great Eagles. So yeah, we're going to be trying to jump in here. You can see the Hounds have mostly gone away at this point. Unfortunately, the Handmaiden has taken quite a bit of damage, but we should be able to toss a Regrowth on her from Teclis. You can see I'm moving him over to start netting and you know, throwing regrowths and, you know, whatever else we need to in terms of effects here. Net of Amantok, of course, will also proc that fire damage. So, meanwhile, over here, just sort of blocking things up with my Illyrian Reavers. We had got a very favorable initial charge there, but having to pull away, obviously, because of those heavy Famirs. So, just kind of trying to disrupt Dutch Skink as much as possible here as he advances across the field. And yeah, this is going to be a nice overcast net here. We might be able to bail this Handmaiden out. It looks like she is still a little bit caught up, and I'm unfortunately not trying to path her out in the appropriate direction. But finally she gets loose there. The Reavers are going to charge in. She did get a regrowth, so she should be coming back from route shortly. But again, keep in mind that Kindle Flame effect, although it has worn off by now, anytime I drop a big spell, it will trigger that Kindle Flame effect. So a Fight or Die, sort of Torgal as well on Wulfric the Wanderer, so he's definitely got a heavy damage spike going. You can see he's doing a ton of damage to this Grey Eagle. Meanwhile, in the frontline fight, we've got some Marauders still just being broken up by these Reavers on the advance. Sisters of Avalorn starting to put in some shots there against a lower tier unit. Not super useful, but we're going to switch them onto these Famir Great Weapons here in just a moment. Meanwhile, over on the far side, I'm starting to pull back away for another kind of hit-and-run type deal. The Grey Eagles, one of them taking an absolute beating from Wulfric, but again, only 800 points. It's really not that big of an issue at this point. These other Grey Eagles can then be used to maybe like chase the routing Hounds or, you know, various things like that. You can see here Reavers once again pulled back, going to go ahead and charge in the front line, and this time they're going to be followed up by the proper High Elf infantry. So the Spearmen getting in here. And again, sort of just these layering, overlapping charges and using these these boys to disrupt, and then we're also going to throw a Bound Fiery Convocation. Nope, looks like Teclis actually canceled it there, and just continuing to poke away at those Famir Warriors as well. We've been able to pick off about 3 models so far. Here I managed to get a really favorable engagement against this Skinwolf Werekin. He gets a little bit isolated over on this side, And Enfeebling Foe, of course, again, drops that Kindle Flame, and he is weak to fire damage baseline, so the Phoenix particularly will do quite well here, and the Eagles are just in here to kind of distract and provide some additional attacks as well. I just missed that Fiery Convocation in the front line, which just broke a couple Marauders. We're going to use those Illyrian Reavers to overrun and chase some routing units there. I did also miss a Flamestorm. I know. I missed a Flamestorm, but these Everqueen's Court Guards took a ton of damage from that Flamestorm, so very good stuff there. Balance power starting to tell slightly in my favor, but you can see I have taken some pretty significant losses here. So, yeah. At this point, I'm just keeping my air squad kind of nice and tight here, keeping everything relatively even. You can see the Marauders are going to get back, tie down these Everqueen's Court Guards, which is okay. They've got some decent work done already, but certainly they have the leadership to stand in the late game. You can see a couple of Reavers here, just great for chasing off routing units. I love Illyrian Reavers right now in general. They're such good units for the price. Honestly, maybe a little bit too strong, but considering where the High Elves are at as a faction, I really don't think it's an issue. Yeah, the Eagle's going to come in here against Wulfric. He's got pretty good armor, so on the charge they'll do a lot of damage, but once it gets into the sustained combat, not so much. But the Handmaiden gets in here with her spear. We've got the Champion's going to fight her a little bit. Oh man, didn't even fell a unit model there. Those Champions with their impressive melee defense actually will match up quite well against the Handmaidens, so I don't necessarily want to sit and fight there for too long, but you can see I'm just trying to get good engagements here. Cascading Fire Cloak on the Famir Balefiend to give himself some fire resistance, as now he is fighting the Handmaiden here. And yeah, his Handmaiden's in a bit of trouble. Granted, the Everqueen's Court Guards have managed to get free and are, you know, sending flying glow sticks over here to give the Famir a good time. The Famir and the Hound still fighting here. The Handmaiden getting very, very low at this point, and oh man, that Fireball only gets a couple of those Everqueen's Court Guards, but still, at this point, that Handmaiden has been routed off, brought the balance of power somewhat back towards even, but now we're coming in for the final strike. We're going to drop an Enfeebling Foe on some of these units here. I don't know exactly who it was. Maybe it was Wulfric? Nope, not quite. Okay, maybe another timing push here. But yeah, you can see I've got the one Eagle and the one Handmaiden very, very low. The Phoenix is also taking quite a bit of damage as well. Teclis is relatively healthy, but finally we're going to come in, use the Flaming Phoenix Feces to bomb out some of these champions, try and get rid of them in the late game here. And yeah, and then the birds will be the word, absolutely. I'm just kind of keeping those other spearmen in the distance, kind of in reserve. Reavers as well, chasing a shattered unit is fine. I can use them to protect the court guards if need be. But at this point, I'm definitely in a pretty favorable situation. Teclis does get kind of caught up over here by the Hounds, but I'm not too worried about it. He will definitely be able to beat those Hounds down pretty well. Probably rout them off. Yep, looks like they rout just before the rest of the mean squad shows up. And yeah, Eagle's going to get tossed in here. Probably a suicide mission for the poor thing. Yep, it gets killed. But at the same time, you know, it's able to come in here, force a little bit of a blob and distract. The Spearman will come to fight the Famir, and with that Kindle Flame, of course, that means the Eagle gets in here and starts to do a bunch of damage to Wulfric, terrifies him away, actually finishes Wulfric off straight up. And how about that finish? Phoenix on Phoenix. The flames in the trail there. Absolutely beautiful. Another Eagle swoops in, and it's just about the end. Those champions will hold on for some time because they're reasonably sturdy units, and of course the Balefiend here is actually dueling Teclis, which Balefiends don't have the best stats. Certainly the melee defense is decent, and yeah, because of the Cascading Fire Cloak, and obviously the Armor Sundering is good, but not the best melee attack in the world. And Teclis does have reasonable melee stats for a caster lord, so of course with the Sword of Teclis I would easily and decisively defeat that Famir, but as it is, he manages to stay in the fight a little bit longer. Actually might end up beating Teclis. A bit of RNG there, but here comes the Phoenix to bail things out, and poor Famir boy, not immune to psychology. Psychology, at least I don't think he is. Let's see. Famir, no, he does cause fear, but not immune to psychology, so good stuff. Very well played to Dutch Skink. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that one. I know it's definitely an interesting matchup. We'll talk more about Norsca's build in just a minute here, and sort of I'll tell you guys what I told Dutch Skink in chat after the fact. But yeah, very good stuff from my side. I've been favoring sort of high elf builds like this lately, going really heavy on Reavers just to give you lots of mobility numbers. And then Teclis Double Handmaiden is just gives you so much utility against so many different situations. You know, you can use the Handmaidens to snipe out high-value monstrous infantry like Famir. You can pick away at enemy cavalry. You can support your cavalry in a melee engagement. Just generally having this, you know, very mobile squad of, you got Teclis, the 2 Handmaidens, the Phoenix, the 2 Eagles. The 2 Eagles are maybe a bit optional. You could maybe try and trade them out for some Silver Helms or something, depending on the matchup. But the Reavers certainly pretty decent here. So yeah, ended up being quite good. As for Dutch Skink, I mean, obviously, champions, I was telling him I'm a huge fan of them here. Good missile block chance, great melee defense. They can cut through most high elf infantry just fine, aside from maybe Swordmasters, but even then, with some timely, like Plague of Rust or, you know, some other support, maybe some Famir support to sunder armor, these shielded champions actually trade really well with the high elves, so I like that pick quite a bit. Famir Great Weapon's always super solid here. The one pick that I'm not the biggest fan of here is the Werekin, just because Sisters of Avalorn are a huge danger. You know, you're very likely to see nets or, you know, some other kind of way of pinning you down, and the Werekins, of course, weak to fire damage. I do like them against some Cav factions, but High Elves, it's a little bit tough. So what I was telling Dutch Skink is you could go in a couple of different directions. Taking Wulfric on the Mammoth is actually quite good against the High Elves, in my opinion, just because the only real tools they have for dealing with it are Sisters of Avalorn, right? Like, most of their lords can't, I mean, like, Tyrion maybe, but he's still probably going to take a bunch of damage. And, let's see, what am I looking for? Norsca, here we go. So, yeah, the Mammoth, it just gives Wulfric a lot more HP as well, so he's going to be harder to snipe. You also don't need the Sword of Torgald when he's up on the Mammoth, obviously, because he already has insane weapon strength, but, yeah, obviously, always take Seafang, Fight or Die, and Hunter of Champions, would definitely take those. Well, we're going to cut the Werekin, and rather than going with Fire here, I'm actually going to go with Lore of Shadows. I think Lore of Fire is decent against the High Elves, but I think Lore of Shadows is just a little bit better in this specific situation, because High Elves, they have really good melee attack and defense typically. So Enfeebling Foe, quite important here, and also having Penumbral Pendulum alongside Wulfric's Boat gives you 2 very powerful wind spells. And Penumbral Pendulum, I mean, obviously Burning Head's quite powerful too, but Penumbral Pendulum just goes off a little bit faster. It's a little bit more consistent in terms of its damage, and it's a little bit more precisely aimed. So against the High Elves, I prefer Penumbral Pendulum. Lower leadership factions like Skaven or, you know, Greenskins, I would definitely say Lore of Fire you're better off with, but here specifically I think we'll go with Shadows. So we'll go like that, and then definitely like the pick of the 2 champions. Lots of Marauders up front is also pretty decent, so we'll go pretty heavy there. Famir Warriors with great weapons, like I said, decent here, and then I might come in and grab these Beasts of Tashnar. Yeah, just to have a squad to sort of hunt enemy Cav, because, I mean, even Illyrian Reavers will suffer pretty badly to this little squad. Of course, Beasts of Tashnar have anti-large, pretty good attack stats, and the Norscan Ice Wolves just have massive weapon strength and also have Frostbite, so the Ice Wolves will slow things down, the Beasts of Tashnar will do the anti-large damage, and sort of using them in tandem I've found to be very powerful. Now, we are a little bit low on funds here, so I'm going to go ahead and cut Smoke and Mirrors because it's basically useless. Evasion is also pretty nice to have, but I think I'd rather have the From the Mists here against, you know, high elf missile attacks, so that is going to buy us a little bit of extra funds. I don't know, I'd have to come in and maybe play with this a little bit and see. I would really like to try and get some Marauder Horsemen as well, just to give us some mobile, you know, skirmish harass. Yeah, I mean, they'll do okay skirmishing Reavers. Reavers don't have a missile block chance, so having a couple of them would definitely be useful. And this is one of the issues you run into with the Mammoth, is it's just so expensive. So I might honestly cut this second Famir here, and then maybe just go a little bit wider, grab a couple of Marauder Horsemen, and we do need one more Source of Terror, so why not grab a Manticore, just to kind of be the counter to the Eagles. Although, granted, against my specific build, this Manticore would be in for a pretty tough time up in the air. It would probably get caught out by those 3 flying units, but assuming I don't know what's coming in the High Elf build, I think something like this could be pretty solid. You could go in a number of other directions as well. Maybe cut the champions and go with a second Mammoth or something. You know, there's definitely some different things that you could do. You know, maybe like cut the Famir, cut one of the champions, try and bring like the Miststalkers or something. Actually, yeah, Miststalkers I would probably say are pretty worth it here, so I don't know, I might try and play around with this a little bit, but certainly a fun matchup. Again, well played to Dutch Skink. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.